Hello and welcome to our second devlog. Before I start, I want to thank everyone who watched the previous video and to everyone who left a comment supporting us. Seeing such a positive response for our game really helps us push forward and keep development going. Today's devlog is going to be mostly about design, as our team is working on underlying systems that will be present in the upcoming updates. But I can still give you a sneak peek at what our team is working on. First thing is controller support. Through our various brainstorming sessions and feedback that we received from the community, we really felt like co-op would be a great addition to our game. Because of that, we wanted to slowly start progressing towards it. Robbie, our programmer, has been working on implementing a new input system for the game in order to support controllers and lay the groundwork for local co-op. And soon we should also have a new devlog where he will talk about how he actually achieved it, going more in depth on the code side of things. Second thing is debug tools. This is something that players don't see and have no use of, but for us as developers, it serves a great purpose. Up until now, testing the game has been somewhat painful, restarting the game countless times until you get an upgrade or starting location that you want. Now, we have new debug tools that let us test out in-game features much faster. The debug tools are triggered by pressing F11, which freezes the game, and opens up a menu where we have access to, granting any module or upgrade. This is extremely helpful when we want to test a combination of upgrades and modules and their balance, as well as just being able to test out things as they are being developed. We can also spawn any enemy that we want, allowing us to quickly and easily test out different encounters and their balance. And related to enemies, of course, we can also right away go to the boss, letting us tweak its behavior and quickly test iterations. Also, we have some cheats, which are always useful, such as infinite health, ammo, etc. Debug tools were really easy to implement and are already saving us a lot of time while testing. Now, you might also ask yourself why implement these debug tools when you can easily just test these things out in the editor, which is true to some degree. But what the debug tools also help us with is when giving the game to testers. For example, we just add a bunch of new upgrades and modules, and we give the game to our testers. It's much easier for them to test these things out using the debug tools instead of having to play until they randomly stumble into them. While we're developing some of these systems, we've also done a few additions and improvements to the game that are present in the latest build. Related to modules, we've created 3 new ones, accompanied by a handful of upgrades for each one of them. First is the Needler, an offensive module that spews shots around it, making it a good tool for clearing large waves of enemies. Its upgrades include higher attack speed, more shots, and the option to apply armor break to enemies. Second is the Deflector. Once you take it, it allows the player to use their alternative fire to send a pulse towards their crosshair, deflecting any incoming shots. This module was created for more dexterity-oriented players who want to use their quick reflexes to their advantage. Upgrades for it include adding more charges, increasing the pulse size, and making the pulse last longer. Third is the hacking module, which when activated hacks an enemy, which makes them target other robots. Upgrades for it include increasing the number of hacked enemies, and increasing the damage the hacked enemies deal. We've also added a shop location. Now you can spend all of that hard-earned scrap to purchase modules, upgrades, or services. This is just the first implementation of the shop, and we're planning on expanding it as well as adding more ways for the player to spend scrap. Another change that we did, which on the surface may seem small, but in practice has a strong effect on gameplay, is that we've added a camera zoom out while the player is in the cannon or using any other module. With this change, we've achieved a few things. First, we expand the view of the player, which lets us create larger and more interesting encounters. Second, it adds a layer of immersion and polish, which helps the player focus on combat while in the cannon and on the train while managing it. The next topic I'd like to discuss is related to our upgrades. For some time now, the team has been talking about expanding our upgrade system in order to make it more interesting, allowing for builds to be created with combinations of modules and upgrades, as well as creating synergies between them. After brainstorming for some time, we made our own lexicon for synergies, and I'd like to briefly talk about it. So we split them up into 3 categories: explicit synergies, auto synergies, and builds. Explicit synergy upgrades are items that clearly provide a synergy to the player when picked up. For example, burning enemies take more damage. Once you get this upgrade, suddenly if you have a way to apply burning to enemies, all of your other damage dealing sources synergize with it. Explicit synergies are good for players since they are clear and the player easily understands what they will get by taking it. A good example for this is from the recent amazing title Tiny Rogues. It uses a lot of explicit synergies, but helps the player feel very in control over their build and choices. The second type is auto synergies. These are a combination of items or upgrades that have deliberately designed synergies between themselves. The best examples of this are from Binding of Isaac, which has tons of auto synergies, like taking Mom's Knife, which lets you charge up a knife and poke enemies with it, and Monstro's Lung, which lets you charge up your shots and fire multiple projectiles at once. The player doesn't know that these two items have a synergy, but once they pick up both, they find out that now you can charge up a shot to fire multiple knives at once. This system encourages player experimentation and can give players a lot of interesting aha moments where they realize they've discovered a new synergy. The third type is simply builds. Builds are a combination of items that go well together. This can be as simple as taking lots of attack speed items paired with crit chance, since the more you hit, the more chances of scoring a crit you will get, to something more complex, which requires a combination of multiple items in order to reach its full potential. Here's an example of a build that we would like to have in Apocalypse Express with a list of upgrades for it. Mortar shots explode into projectiles, projectiles ricochet, modules explode into projectiles when destroyed, projectiles have slight homing, main cannon shoots more shots and fires faster but deals less damage, Gatling module fires faster with higher spread. With this build, the more projectile-oriented upgrades you get, the more powerful it gets. The interesting thing with builds is that they consist of various upgrades that can work on their own, but when paired with others that go well together, they suddenly start forming something more powerful. Using this type of synergy gives the player a sense of progression as their build expands through the run, becoming more powerful. In the end, for Apocalypse Express, we decided to go with explicit synergies and builds to be our primary way of providing synergies to players. We still want to have a few auto synergies, but they will mostly be tied to the main canon. And that will be it for this devlog. I hope you enjoyed the video and found some of this stuff informative. If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe, as we plan on posting devlogs on a monthly basis. Also, if there are any questions, just pop a comment and we will definitely respond. Another thing I wanted to add is, if any of you are interested in playing our game, you can find the link to our itch page in the description. The more feedback we have, the better we can make the game. So if the game seems interesting and you'd like to contribute, just stop by our Discord and we can chat. And see you in the next one.